So I've been taking a few pictures on my way back from the studio as I walk along the river, and yeah, it's been okay. Took a few on the road as well on the way up here, and I have noticed a few issues which are missed shots. I was trying to take a picture of some billboards and some tower blocks, and I'm not sure whether there was actually a vehicle going past as the shutter went, and I won't know until I get the film developed. So it was that thing, do I stay and take another picture and waste a frame of film, or do I just leave it? So I decided to just leave it. And there is also that issue of, do I take this picture at all or not? And there have been a couple of times when I've not taken the picture, and actually I've taken a picture on my phone instead. Also, knowing that I've got black and white film, and sometimes I've seen a picture and I thought, oh, actually that would be really good in colour. But it's not like with a digital camera where you can shoot a raw file and a black and white file. I've got black and white film in it, unless I want to unreel the film and swap it for colour. There's nothing I can do really about that. But again, it's discipline, isn't it? You learn a bit of discipline, and it's a challenge. So I'm enjoying it. I shall get a few more pictures and maybe some more urban stuff rather than just by the river. Stopping to make notes of the locations and the settings that I've used has been a pain as well. It's really nice that the cameras nowadays just include that, especially GPS information, some of them. But yeah, I'm going to crack on now.
So welcome back to a very chilly studio. It's been about a week since I loaded up my camera with black and white film, and it's nearly ready for developing. I've shot about 24 out of 36 frames, and I'm probably going to shoot the rest today. So next time I come into the studio, I will develop that film. But before I do so, I want to show you how you load a film into the developing tank, because when I do it for real, it will be in a dark bag, so you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So bear with me a second. That's the developing tank. And if I just take off the lid, remove the stirrer and the funnel, which is how you pour the developing fluid in without it letting light into the canister. That's one of the special things about this. Let's pop that on the floor. And then we take out here, this is the reel that the film actually goes onto before being loaded into the tank. So let's take a look at that a little bit more closely. And you can see that this is a sort of spiral here, and you feed the film in through this slot here. There's actually room for two 35mm films. One goes in here, one goes in here. You can just do one, but the chemicals will wash over two, so it's probably best to do two films at once to get value out of your chemicals. But anyway, you load in the film here, and it then is fed on by just jigging this backwards and forwards, and it kind of ratchets it on in the same way that a wind-on lever of the camera winds the film onto the spool there. So what I'll do, I'll just show you. I've got here, this is an old 35mm film which has been developed and it's been scanned, and there's nothing of any great value on it, so I can use it to play around with and just to show you what you do. So again, this will be done in the dark. So you load the film just in here, and there are two little rubber nubs that it will just rest against, and that should give it something, can you see that, to engage with. And I don't know if it's clear, but that film is now winding on to the spiral. So you just keep jigging it one, and the film will eventually be wound completely onto the spiral. So there you go, that's the end of the film there, just going on. So then that goes back into here. Again, this is all done in the dark. Then on goes your funnel, in goes your stirrer, and that's what agitates it. You can spin it around there, and then on goes the lid, and then you're good to go. And then you can turn the lights back on or take this out of the dark bag, and you're ready for the next stage of the process. So there we go. That's all done. And now we would start pouring in the developer and agitating, and the development process would start. Hello again. It has been slightly longer than anticipated since I last spoke to you. I had intended to come into the studio and develop the film a couple of days after I showed you how to load the camera, etc. But life got in the way, and it is now a few weeks later, as you can probably see from the beard growth. But I have now completed shooting this roll of film. So I'm now in a position to unload the film, put it in the developer, develop it, and then either make some prints from it or scan it and put it online. So, should we crack on? You'll see that the wind on knob is stuck halfway, and that is because I have reached the end of the reel and it can no longer feed any more off the spool. So what I need to do is go underneath the camera, and there is a little button here, and if I press that button, hear the click, that then puts the spool into rewind mode. Before that, this would not rewind the film, because obviously you don't want to start rewinding the film in the middle of shooting a roll, not usually anyway. But now I should be able to turn it in the direction of the arrow, and yeah, I can feel the tension as the film rewinds back into its cassette. It gets sort of more and more tight, and it requires more and more force to turn it as you get to the beginning of the roll. And what I want to do is stop just as that happens, because if possible, I don't want to feed the whole film back into the cassette, because then I have to prise open the lid in darkness to get the film out. Whereas if I can stop it while there's just the leader sticking out, I can then put it into the developing spool in daylight and then feed it through in darkness. So I think we're getting near to the end, and there might be a little click as it suddenly releases. There we go. Did you hear that little click? So, do you think we got it with the leader out? We will see. So I need to pull this up now to release the back of the camera. Yay! How about that then? So we just have the leader there popping out. So we should be able to put it into the developing spindle in daylight. So pop that down, and now the wind on button releases, and that camera is ready to be used again at some later date, who knows when. So I'm now ready to start developing. So I'm going to put on my black nitrile gloves so as not to contaminate the film, and also so that I don't end up licking my fingers with developer on them. I have got myself here a plastic bucket full of warm water. Now I need that water to be at just over the temperature that I want my chemicals to be at for developing. So I've got my thermometer here. I need it to be, chemicals need to be at 20 degrees C. So the water needs to be about 21. So the thermometer is reading 17. Pop that into here, and it's rising up 21, 22, 23, 24. So that needs to cool down a bit before we put the chemicals in. But that's good because it gives us time, if I put this down to one side, to mix our chemicals. So as not to get confused, I have labelled each of the cylinders, because I don't want to put fixer in stop, stop in fixer, and everything the wrong way around, and it's easy to get confused once you start going. So this is my developer cylinder, and that requires the developer to go into it. Then I have another one labelled up here for my fixer, and then finally I have one for the stop bath here. So normally I would need to measure things out first. Because we've got the Simplicity kit here, the sachets are pre-measured, assuming that your final volume will be 600 millilitres for each. I can just pour each one into the correct cylinder and then top them up to 600. So let's start with developer. So the developer goes in here, whole sachet, stop bath in this one. Again, I'm in a well ventilated room here. You should always do this in a well ventilated area. If you feel dizzy or sick, you stop and you move away. Finally here, in this one, we put the fixer. So again, I've made it easier by having all these pre-loaded and the sachets of exactly the correct amounts, but it is a very expensive way of doing it. And I wouldn't do this if I was going to be routinely developing. Some of these chemicals you can keep to use again, some of them have to be got rid of as soon as they've been used in a safe way. So now we need to top all these up to 600 millilitres. Next are stop, and finally our fixer. Perfect, everything up to 600 ml. So now we need to wait for our water to come down to the correct temperature, and then we can put our chemicals in there to start to warm up. So that's at 23, so it's still got a way to go, so we'll just take a little pause there. So what we do once we've got the chemicals to the right temperature, this is what I showed you I was doing in the daylight that I was going to do in darkness. Cut the leader off here so that we can put it onto the reel. So there you go, so we've got flat across the top. We're going to do two films because I've got another film here which I've also shot just for fun, because we can fit two in the developer, so it would seem a waste of money to just put one in. Could just put one in, but I'm going to do two to get value for money. There we go, so that's the second one. And what I will do is I will start feeding them onto these reels here in daylight, and then I will go into the dark box and finish loading the film. Okay, so as if by magic, this is now full of 2 rolls of black and white film. It was very stressful and very difficult by touch getting the films into here, and one of them I think I crushed a little bit because it didn't seem to go onto the leader spools as it should have done. The other one seemed to go on fairly easily, so it's just a question of whether my light-proof container actually was light-proof. But anyway, the films are in here now and they're ready to be developed. So I now just need to check. Those, by the way, are my clips for putting the film on to dry, to hang. But the next thing we need to do is just check that the chemicals are at the right temperature. Bang on 20. I don't know if you can see that, but it is bang on 20, so that's good. So thermometer away. Now the developer takes, for this particular film, 6.5 minutes. In fact, actually, I've got 2 different types of film here. I've got an Ilford 400 and a Kentmere 400. Now the Kentmere says it takes 6 minutes 30 and the Ilford 7 minutes. So I'm going to aim for 6.5 and then start draining things, and knowing that at 6.5 it shouldn't make that much of a difference. So what I'll do is I'll get my developer here, which has been standing in its water bath, getting to the right temperature. I'm going to just give that a stir there to make sure it is all the right temperature all the way through and mixed properly with the water, because it was a concentrate plus the water. And then, as quickly as possible, in one smooth motion, I will remove this lid and pour the developer into here. So I just need to remove that and pour this into here. All in there, stirrer goes in, lid goes on, timer is started. The countdown begins. Now I have to agitate this every 30 seconds or so to mix the chemicals around. The last thing I want to do is invert this and pour developer all over the table. Been 30 seconds about now. Turn it upside down, back the right way around again. 6, 5, 4, 3, time slows down, doesn't it? 2, 1, 0. Right, okay. So I carefully pour this away. And then in goes the stop bath. On goes the lid, and this is stopping the development. Pour this one away. We'll set our timer to 3 minutes. And in with the fixer. On goes the lid, and the timer begins. Okay, and there goes another timer, which means it is now time to tip away the fixer and begin the rinse. So you don't need this lid anymore because it's now fixed. And now we rinse with water. We can remove this now because the film is fixed. And we are just using the water there to give it a good rinse out. Okay, moment of truth. I'm going to lift the lid and see. I've taken my gloves off now, and we will see whether we have a developed film. Oh, fingers crossed. What is there on here? Oh, I can see something. So I get my clip here. I attach the clip to the end that is not properly exposed, and then I hang this to dry. There are images on it. That is looking very promising indeed. So that's one which has stuff in. Let's look at the other one. So that was the Ilford, and this is the Kentmere, which is looking slightly underexposed, but no, actually there's stuff on here. There we go, and then I hang this.